Good morning, everyone. You're very welcome to our webinar this morning on future of cybersecurity and AI for SMEs. Just before we get started, I just want to draw your attention to our new business association, DLR West Business Association, that has been set up to represent businesses in Nutgrove, Churchtown and Ballantyre. The benefits are marketing, raising your profile through joint promotions and member showcases, networking, meeting your local peers, collaborating and accessing training opportunities, gaining advice through shared expertise and access to mentoring. And the association would be advocating on your behalf for any issues that you might be encountering. So if anybody is interested in joining, just scan that QR code. It'll bring you directly to our website to sign up digitally. The fee up until the end of 2026 is very affordable at €125. And with that, now I'm going to hand you over to Paul Delahunty from Stryve, who is going to bring us through our session today on the future of cybersecurity and AI for SMEs. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Karen, and hello and good morning, and very welcome to everyone joining us this morning. What are we going to talk about today? Well, hopefully my goal today will be to give you a clear and practical understanding of what's changing in cybersecurity, or information security as I prefer to call it, and what does AI mean for both attackers and defenders, and most importantly, hopefully by the end, what realistic and steps SMEs can take to stay safe. A little bit about AI, and because it's a little bit of a buzzword, but let's see how it goes. It's not a technical presentation. It's not a technical webinar. You don't need to be an engineer to follow along. Hopefully, it'll be very easy to understand, and we can demystify some complex ideas and give you something tangible you can act on. Okay, so let's dive in and let's start with a baseline. Okay. So let's look at the digital landscape for SMEs at the moment. So over the last couple of years, SMEs in particular have gone through unprecedented digital change and digital transformation, to use that buzzword. Many small organizations now rely on more digital tools than some large enterprises did 10 years ago. Think about your own business. You're probably using email. We're on a Teams call now. Maybe you use Zoom as well. Probably have a CRM system, accounting software, cloud storage, probably payroll tools, appointment systems, HR systems, marketing platforms. The list goes on, and it's not really unusual for an SME now to have 20, 30, 40 cloud services or tools. And while each one of those tools improves the productivity, and it's really, really helping you do your business, we have to remember in the back of our heads that also hugely increases the attack surface that's available to hackers. Each one of those is realistically a doorway into your business. And attackers really only need that one unlocked door. So that's the thing we got to keep in mind. We've got to keep each one of those doors locked, because they all perform a function. They're all necessary. But we make sure they're all secure. Okay. And as well as that too, SMEs also hold an awful lot of very, very valuable data. So the customer information, the financial records, pricing data, supplier relationships, all that kind of thing. It's all very, very attractive to any hackers. So let's look at the evolving cyber threat landscape. So I think it is fair to say that in particular, if we look at AI in particular, over the last 2 or 3 years, it has really ramped up, and it's absolutely evolving right in front of our eyes. But even with beyond AI, and if you look back in the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, cybercrime was largely about, individual cyber criminals kind of trying their luck. And we had images of, spotty teenagers in basements, or maybe we had 1 or 2, hackers that just, were pretty good at coding and just wanted to get a few euro or something like that. But that has totally changed over the last number of years. Cybercrime now is very, very organized, and it is very automated, and it is global. And there really are, there's a couple of trends and a couple of things that are happening that we just need to understand and be aware of. So the ransomware, phishing, insider threats, all those kind of things, they're all evolving. In particular, phishing, that's still the number one cause of breaches. That's still somebody clicking on a link, somebody opening up a document that was sent to them. That's phishing. That is still the number one cause. And I don't foresee that changing anytime soon, because that's an attack vector that attacks people. And people will probably continue to remain our weakest link. They can be our strongest defense, but they are also that key entry point in to phishing won't change anytime soon. But if you remember phishing from a couple of years back, it was kind of, most of the time it was fairly easy to spot. It might start off, "Dear Mr. Paul," and, "Please click on link now." The English was all over the place. Maybe the graphics were a little bit fuzzy. There were a lot of telltale signs. Whereas now, especially with the likes of AI coming on board, that is absolutely changing. AI has souped up the attacker's ability to create credible phishes enormously. Not only can AI get rid of grammar and that kind of stuff, they can actually mimic your language. And when I say your language, I don't mean English or French or Italian or whatever. I mean your specific language, the way I speak. The way I speak is different to the way my mother and father might speak or my friends might speak. I have my own little idiosyncrasies that I use that I don't even notice. And AI can absolutely take those, it can copy them, and it can generate flawless emails that really look like they're from your CEO, your banker, your supplier. People really need to be aware of that as well. And when it comes to things like ransomware, it's industrialized now. So these criminal groups that are out there, um, they're part of they many of them work for what they consider to be a legitimate organization. Whereas before it was individuals or maybe groups of friends or something like that, or groups of criminals. Many of these places now, they have HR. They have to clock in and clock out. They have holidays. Some of them have creches. They operate like a normal business would operate. Um, so they're very, very industrialized. They're very, very organized, and they're starting to do things as a service. So zero hacking skills are needed. You can simply go and buy some ransomware as a service in the same way as that you might go to Microsoft and buy software as a service. And that means then SMEs are hit just as often, if not more so, than large companies, because the attacks are automated. It's nothing personal. Um, Supply chain vulnerabilities, then, that's something that has become, over the last couple of years as well, a huge attack vector, because, again, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And even if you are an organization or a person who's you're on top of your game when it comes to security, you've put everything in place. Can you actually say the same for all of your suppliers? And how do you know, if your suppliers are actually taking security as seriously as you are? There are some things you can do, and I would strongly encourage it. Certainly, auditing any suppliers that you have. Certainly, at the very least, just asking the question. Are you ISO 27001 certified? What access will you have to my data? Those kind of things, and certainly keep an eye on their access into your organization and making sure it's closed down in a timely fashion, and they only have access to what they actually need to know. Those kind of small steps can certainly help. But again, the supply chain vulnerabilities are something you just need to keep an eye on and keep in the back of your head. And of course, automation. Automation is absolutely on the increase. And the reason why it is really, so AI just means all these attacks, the attackers can just start something off and they automatically are spread out there, because the AI can take what the attacker wants to do, and it can make decisions for it and do it in a way that humans just can't do it. In terms of speed, in terms of quality, in terms of everything. It can just do it at a scale that humans cannot possibly do. And it does it in a really high quality, with perfect spelling, personalized content, a really high quality way. So it's harder to detect as well. Uh, Remember too, it's nothing personal. And that's part of what we lead into here in why SMEs. So within Ireland, I think something like 99.6% of organizations within Ireland, and they employ something like 68, 69%. Okay. So SMEs, just by that fact alone, are a huge target, because you're going to target the biggest sector of the economy. Okay. And although you can look at large organizations and say, well, yeah, but they can get an awful lot more money out of, Facebook, Intel, Microsoft, whomever, big organizations that operate in Ireland. And that maybe that's true, maybe it's not true. But one, um, it's much harder to get into those organizations because they have lots of money they can throw at defenses. They have their own, probably have a security team that they have there. So to get that big payday, you need to put an awful lot of resources, an awful lot of effort, and you have to have a lot of luck to get in there. Whereas if you can hit more small organizations and you're only taking a smaller amount of money, but you're hitting more of them, much easier. It's probably the same hack over and over again will get them. It's much easier. It's like going fishing, for sardines instead of for whales, right? Whale, if you catch one, it'll be a big payday, but it's a lot of effort to catch that whale. Whereas if you can easily catch, thousands and thousands of sardines and still have a good payday. Thing about SMEs too, we're speaking generally here now. I Stryve an SME. Previous to this, I worked in a startup. Previous to that, I worked in a blue chip company as well. So I see it from all different aspects. But generally within SMEs, there are limited budgets. Money is not endless. People are not endless. And unless you're actually working in an SME that looks at security, you're probably not going to have a dedicated SOC. You're probably not going to have dedicated security people. You might have some dedicated IT people, but you probably won't have security IT people. So the resources and what's there to hand, it's limited. Sometimes as well, things like SMEs, you might have older systems as well. That comes again back to the limit. And because maybe you have limited people available as well, things like patching maybe get forgotten about a little bit or aren't done in the productified way, in the regular way that many of the larger organizations might have. And there is, of course, look, it's difficult as well because there is in the world of security specialists as well. And unfortunately, um, there is a misconception out there that we're too small to be hacked. But the reality is the majority of hacks are actually SMEs. Again, because unfortunately they are seen to be easier targets. They don't go after the big companies generally, go after the easiest company. If you think of it in terms of somebody who's stealing cars, what car are they going to steal? Generally, it's going to be the one that has the keys left in the ignition, the doors locked, there's no steering wheel embedment or anything like that. That's the one that they're going to steal, not the one that's very hard to break into with barbed wire around it and security guards and everything. So let's look at some of the business impacts of cyber attacks. Well, there's some obvious ones, of course. Financial losses, that's the one everyone thinks of first. Of course, there's downtime, lost sales, damage to customer trust. That's something that's quite important, that customer trust piece, because that's something that lingers on and on afterwards. And kind of ironically, again, over the last couple of years, the attitude has changed somewhat in that um, it's now considered that it's not if you get hacked, it's when. So that kind of, there's been an attitude shift. So kind of ironically, most customers are willing to forgive or I suppose be somewhat empathetic towards an organization that has been hacked if they show that they have responded in the correct way. And well, actually, we were doing all the right things, but we just got a little bit unlucky. But even when we were hacked, we had our plans in place. Here's how we reacted. We did everything by the book, and we've minimized the of it. If you can do that, you do actually keep a lot of that customer trust. But it is something that lingers on. It's hard to measure as well. And of course, there's staff stress and burnout from it as well. The compliance penalties, that can often be a big thing as well on what the hack was, but you have to keep that kind of thing in mind as well. And then just the cost of recovery. Sometimes it can exceed the prevention costs. Many times it can exceed it. Cyber insurance, for example, that's another thing. If the basic protections aren't in place, more than likely the cyber insurance won't pay. In the same way as if you have house insurance, but you walk out and you leave the door open and the alarm off. House insurance probably is not going to pay if you get robbed. If you don't have your smoke alarm in at home and the house goes up in fire, again, that could be something where the insurers go, well, you were not paying because it was negligent. It burnt down because you didn't have the basic protections in place. Same for your business. And shockingly, really, it's hard to get an exact figure on this, but it seems to be some sort of consensus around 20% of SMEs that end up going out of business after a cyber attack. So that should shake everyone up and go, okay, this is something that's quite important. 1 in every 5 goes out of business. One last thing on it as well is just that emotional strain as well. The personal impact is quite a lot. And I know some people who have been involved in these. And I know one person who ended up, the stress and strain actually brought on a heart attack in them. So if you've ever been involved in these, even if it's not your business, even as somebody coming in to try and aid a business, it is an extremely stressful environment as well. And you just have to consider that for yourself as well as for your members of staff as well. So let's talk a little bit about AI and try and demystify it a small bit, because it is everywhere now. And it just feels like when there was a big buzz around organic foods, every food manufacturer wanted to slap a sticker on the side of the can saying it was organic. Okay, it feels a little bit like that. Every tool out there now seems to want to slap a sticker on the side saying, oh, it's got AI, AI, AI. What is it? It's not any one thing, really. Okay, it's a kind of a collection of tools. And what it really is artificial intelligence is just anything that can learn from data. It can identify patterns, from millions of patterns, far beyond what humans could track, and something which can update itself, really, to learn from that and go, okay, well, actually, I can see the pattern here, but you know what, that was wrong. So now I'm learning from that and I'm adjusting what I'm doing because of that learning. That's pretty much what AI is. What it does bring in terms of security then is its ability to detect issues and to respond to them at just really crazy speeds. It is so fast, far faster than any team of humans could even possibly do, at a huge scale and very, very consistently. So it definitely brings an awful lot to cybersecurity. It monitors behavior, for example. What's normal? What's unusual? What about that login? That looks a little bit suspicious. Does that email seem genuine? Did that device behave just a little bit differently? Why is that person, logging in at midnight and downloading all those files? That's not normal. And it's able then to not just detect that, but it's able to respond to that and go, well, oh, okay, actually, that's not normal. I'm shutting that down. And it's doing it for you in a way that before you'd wake up the following morning and you'd see the issues and you'd already be 6, 7, 8 hours behind the hackers. Whereas now the AI, it can actually shut things down for you and shut it out. It's pretty much like 24-hour 7 days a week security analyst who never sleeps, never gets distracted, and constantly learns. So it's automation, a huge, huge automation.
Paul, I'll just say as well there, for anybody who has questions throughout, if you just want to pop them into the Q&A section, and we'll answer them at the very end. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Kieran. So let's talk a little bit more then about how AI is transforming cybersecurity. Again, this predictive analytics for threat detection. So it can kind of see patterns. It can observe patterns, much like a human can observe patterns. And it can kind of go, okay, look, there's something going to happen here. Based on the patterns I see, I predict this is going to happen. And it can detect threats before they even happen. Not all the time, but in many cases, it can do that. Kind of like when a human, can see, oh, I don't know what quite is wrong in this situation, but something doesn't feel right. That kind of predictive analytics. It can use behavioral analysis to spot anomalies. As I said there a second ago, a user suddenly downloads 20,000 files at midnight. Do you know what? That's a little bit weird. That user is never logged on after 7 o'clock in the evening. And this is a kind of bit strange. It can spot that in seconds and shut it down. When it comes to email security, and remember phishing, remember I said it is the number one attack vector for hackers out there, and more than likely it will remain so. I can't see that ever changing. It is much, much better at detecting phishing attempts. So it can analyze writing style. It can, look at the sender identity, and a lot of other little subtle things because it doesn't have that human instinct to trust. It's a machine. It's a tool. It's a piece of software. It doesn't have any of those human frailties that phishing relies on to get you protection as well. Before endpoint protection, what means that the devices, laptops, phones, those are the endpoints. Before, old kind of cybersecurity tools would have looked at signatures. When they're looking for malware, malware should look like this, and if I see that, I know it's malware. AI now is changing it, so it's looking at things like behavioral patterns. So, for example, it might know something is malware. That piece of software is behaving suspiciously. So it can look at what the actual software is doing rather than the signature of the software itself and stop it. So that's a huge jump forward in cyber. Of course, it's that automated part. It means that it can react to it. Not only can it detect it, but it can also stop it in real time, isolate it from the network, block the attacker, and prevent the spread of the attack, all in minutes. So it just moves us from that reactive defense to proactive defense. As I said earlier, it's like having a 24-hour, 7-day-week security guard who gets smart. Now, it is, of course, a little bit of a double-edged sword, because it isn't just helping defenders, attackers use it as well, and that's where things get a little bit more challenging. But I was speaking at another event yesterday, we were talking about AI, and the point was made during that as well, that just remember, the attackers don't have access to any special technology that, the good guys don't have. In fact, it's probably the other way around, because most of the researchers looking into AI are on the good side. So just keep that in the back of your head. They don't have anything special, but it's how they use the tools that are out there. So we just need to make sure that we are also using the tools to counteract that. Okay. AI does make things much easier for attackers. It can generate perfect phishing messages. It can clone voices. You only need 3 seconds of a voice to clone it. So those calls that sometimes we get where it mightn't be anyone on the end of the call, or maybe it's playing an automated messages and we answer the call. Hi, it's Paul here. How are you? Who's this? They've got enough there to clone my voice. Okay. So you've got to be aware of these things as well. Deep fake videos. That's all the rage now. There's an image of Catherine Connolly there, our president, and during the presidential election, of course, there was quite a famous video that was deep fake where she withdrew from the race. These deep fake videos are becoming much, much more believable, um, and much, much better. And they're already out there in the world. As time goes on, these will become better. So we're at the very start, and look at how good they are now already. I do know, and you can look up the details of this because it's widely out there if you Google it afterwards. There was a organization based out of Hong Kong, and I think it was in March 2023. So this is even 2 years ago. Back then, uh, there was a deep fake attack on that organization, and they were tricked into transferring 25 million pounds, which is huge money. And the deep fake was actually a Teams call. And so they had on the other side of the Teams call, they had supposedly the CEO, CTO, CFO, a number of C-suite individuals in a boardroom setting, in a live video. So it had the video part right, it had the voices right, it had the right people in the room. It was all very, very, very convincing. Okay, that's the world we're living in now. Of course, AI then can crack the passwords faster. So we need to make sure that people in our organization are trained so that they know, look, these small, easy to guess passwords are just not acceptable anymore. You might as well have no password. It's not acceptable. We need to use longer passphrases. That's what we need to do. So literally taking a sentence and making it up. It's a beautiful day today. I love it when there are no clouds. Something nice and simple, but all of a sudden now you have, I don't know how many characters are in that, but it's probably 20, 25, maybe 30 characters in that. That's a huge long passphrase, much harder to crack and actually much easier to type and remember than some complex string of random characters. AI, of course, for the attackers, then it can automate these within your network. This is all automated now. It just scans, it just sends it out there. So it can see what doors are open, what devices aren't patched, and it can do it all automatically. The AI generated malware and social engineering, um, there's malware out there now that can actually adjust itself. Okay, it AI generated. And of course, the social engineering bit, it's much, much, which no longer works really, to be honest with you. We just need the systems, but we also need the processes that assume that these communications are fake. And the processes are really important there as well. So it's just a bit of an arms race going on at the moment. But look, that's nothing new, to be honest. So the future outlook, 2025, 2030, let's get out the crystal ball and see what it looks like. Um, Predictive autonomous security. So this is a big, big, again, jump forward. This is going to get better systems that prevent attacks before they even occur. And that's huge, huge thing. They are going to become much, much more normalized and much, much more standard as well. Trust will be the standard. So everything will need to be trusted, will need to be verified. Every user, every device, every app will have to prove its identity every time. Uh, that will be the default. The more connected devices equals more vulnerabilities, absolutely a bigger attack surface. IoT, Internet of Things. Hopefully you're familiar with that concept. It's pretty much where anything that you can put a chip in can be a connected device or a device. I don't really like that terminology because often these devices are not smart; they're just connected. So you could have your connected, your smart fridge, and your Alexa, and your smart TV, and all these things connected up. And very, very few of them really have any safety standards. And when people can know how many of these things are in your office, When you connect them up, are you changing passwords, for example? Are you putting MFA in them? Is it possible to even do that? Things have got a bit. G came out, a lot of the passwords were default passwords and they were hard coded in. So all of these devices, once they're connected in an AI world, um, these these are just more ways that they can get into your network and very, very, very hard to defend against. So just really consider, especially in the work environment, other things, do I really need to have, that smart board there? Can I not just get away with a normal whiteboard with markers? Do I really need to have an Alexa in the office? Do I really need those things? And just be careful. Autonomous defenses, we mentioned that already as well. One big thing that's going to come up in a couple of years is quantum computing. So that is, if you've heard of quantum physics, it's the next evolution. This will be to IT what like the invention of the internet was. It'll be a huge, huge step. It does mean things like our traditional encryption will no longer have, may no longer be safe here. It will no longer be safe. But again, the good guys are also, they're the ones developing a lot of this. So these quantum safe algorithms are being developed. We're almost there. We nearly have it, but it will be a huge, huge step forward in terms of technology over the coming years. And of course, regulations and penalties, those kind of things, they will be tightening. There's a lot of work going on now within the EU, for example, literally regulation around AI. Uh, Again, it was designed towards SMEs because the original AI Act was just seemed as there was just too much red tape in there, too many things that SMEs just needed to align with to make it practical to do. So they're actually paring it back to make it more, which is great news. So let's look at some practical steps that all SMEs can do. First thing I would say is start with a cybersecurity assessment. So if you don't know where your risks are, how can you defend against them? So start with an assessment, see what the basic steps you can take, talk to somebody who understands cybersecurity and can help you out. And there's lots of information out there too. The CIS controls are very good. NIT don't have to go down the path of ISO 27001. It's not appropriate for a lot of organizations. It's brilliant, but it can be, it's a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of work. But it doesn't mean you can't do anything. You can certainly do the CAS controls. You can certainly do NIST. There's a lot of things. If you're based out of the UK, you've got Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials, all very, very good things and very, very good steps you can take. But key steps, even if you don't look at those, multi-factor authentication everywhere. Any place you can turn it on because it's that belt and braces approach. And it takes a lot of the responsibility away from the end user to make sure that they have a proper passphrase. Okay. Because even if you get past the password or passphrase, you still have to have that multi-factor. It's not infallible. Nothing is infallible, but it really, really does make it much, much more difficult. In regular patching and updates. So even on your own phones, I'm sure you're probably sick of them now. The pop-ups that come, you've 28 updates waiting to be updated at the moment. But think of in a work environment, everything needs to be patched. Everything needs to be updated regularly. We spoke a lot about automation during this webinar and talking about how AI, it's nothing personal. It just literally scans out there and picks up the vulnerabilities. You don't want those vulnerabilities out there. That's where the regular patching and the regular updating comes in, because it patches those vulnerabilities and it updates your software. If that's up to date, you're much, much less likely to be the victim of an attack. I powered endpoint protection as well. That's something that certainly you should look at, because again, if you're going to fight AI, you need AI tools. It just levels the playing field. Okay, so your endpoints, your devices, your laptops, your phones, whatever else you have, your tablets. AI powered endpoint protection is important. Again, secure your backups, because at the end of it, that's why I prefer using the phrase information security rather than cybersecurity, because it is about the information. That's what's really important. So if you can have your secure backups, make sure you've got some offline or even better immutable backups. So even if your backups are infected with a ransomware virus, for example, it means it can't actually destroy that backup because it's immutable. The virus is still in there, but you can extract it out of it, but it can't destroy the backup because it's immutable. So something like that is really, really good. And of course, test them regularly. Don't just assume they work. Don't just assume they've been successful. Test the backups by testing them and restoring them. And it just means the actual the process of restoring your backups, when something goes wrong, it becomes much easier because you're used to it. You've done it several times. You've tested it. Um, Staff training programs, very important. And I know sometimes it does feel like some of these videos are staff training things, they're a bit, everyone knows that, but you'll be very surprised. Even if all it does is it just keeps that cybersecurity focus on the front of their heads. Even if that's all it does, it's still very, very, very positive, because again, you want to have kind of a security culture within your organization. Okay, without even realizing they're thinking about it. The only really way you can get that is with staff training. Um, if you use something simple like a password manager and force people in the organization to use that, that would be great, because it just gets rid of that human habit of reusing passwords or using weak passwords. Password managers can be very, very effective in just nullifying that. So if you can get people in your organization to use that, that'd be a big step forward. Um, Make sure you have your basic device management policies in place and your basic cybersecurity policies in place throughout the organization. What's acceptable use? And one very, very big one to have is your response plan. So know what you'll do if something goes wrong. Because think of it as the emergency room in a hospital. When the ambulance comes in with the patient, the doctors and nurses aren't, wandering around scratching their heads going, right, who does what, whose turn is it to do this? They know what to do. They just kick in and they train regularly on it. So make sure, just like a fire drill in the office, make sure that instant response plan is practiced as well. So small steps make big improvements. And there's only one thing you can do after today: turn on the MFA. Building our cyber resilience then. So cyber resilience just means it's about continuity. So if something goes wrong, does my world fall apart or can I continue? Am I resilient? And you'll hear that word resilience an awful lot, because they talk about it even at EU level about building the EU. How quickly can we recover? So, you know, a strong resilience plan for an SME would include things like the regular backups. Um, are they reliable? Have they been tested? What about the instant response plan? Who has what role if something goes wrong? What's the communication plan? Are there regular drills in it? What's the business continuity plan? Who do I need to contact? What systems should be restored first? There's a very basic question that you won't think of unless you actually pull out these plans and get everyone together and sit down around a table and try and work. What about the continuous monitoring and updates as well? Making sure everything is patched, making sure everything is updated, monitoring insofar as you can. But again, if we use AI, that becomes automated and it's much, much easier. Um, Employee awareness training as well. You cannot possibly train the employees enough. It's just keeping it in the front of their head. So you're building that culture of security. All these things together builds that culture. It's not just a one thing. And it's not just about stopping the attacks, it's about limiting the impact as well. And very, very keyly as well is that this cybersecurity is often thought of as this IT responsibility. That's the IT team. What do you do about cybersecurity? Well, we have an IT team. IT is just the tools. Okay. The cybersecurity, as I say here, it's a team sport. Everyone within the organization, from the receptionists to the cleaner to the CEO, everyone needs to be part of that team. And they all have a collective responsibility and they all So again, looking at that action plan, what we need to get started. Step one, assess the risk. If you don't know what your risks are, how do you protect against them? You can't. So it's a very easy way. Let's just see what we have. Let's sit down, assess the risk. You can do it yourselves. You can look at cissecurity.org, look at the CIS controls, you can look at the NIST standards and assess it against that. If you're talking to a cyber insurance company, a lot of them give out a list of things that they would like to have in place. That could be your plan, and assess your risk against each one of those. But you could have other risks in your organization that aren't covered by that, and you need to sit down and think about it. One thing I would say is when you're doing that risk assessment, try and involve representatives from each part of your organization if you can. You don't, it doesn't work with dozens and dozens of people, but try and have people from different parts, because they see the world differently to you. Okay, so it's not just an IT thing. What data do you hold? What systems are critical? What could disrupt operations? What if it went down tomorrow morning would really, really hurt the organization? Start there. Okay. Step two, then adopt the right tools. Look at your email security, your endpoint protection, access control. Who has access to what? How locked down is that access? If it's around, things like third parties coming in, well, do they need all the access that they have? Asking those questions and shutting it down, making sure everyone just has access on a need to know basis. Step three, then adapting your behavior. I was in an organization before helping them out where they had a behavior where some shared passwords were on post-it notes and put up on the notice board. It was a very handy way of making sure no one was locked out, but that behavior needed to be adapted because that is not secure. Making sure you have policies, and policies aren't just bits of paper that you write out, you look at once, and you leave there in the corner gathering dust. Policies should be something that work with your business, and you need to live them. Otherwise, don't bother writing them. There's no point. But you need to have some policies going, look, this is how we set out our stall. This is how you act when you're in our business, when you're in our organization, and these are the rules and ways of working that we follow. And the processes are part of that, and making sure you have the training. And then step four, you need to review it regularly. All of these things, it's about continuous improvement. Cybersecurity is changing. The world is changing the whole time. Technology is changing the whole time. We need to keep up with it and make sure that whatever we're doing is still relevant and is still effective. So some key takeaways. Cyber threats are evolving very, very quickly, but again, so are the defenses. And that is absolutely worth remembering as well. Please don't think if you are an SME that you are not a target. I don't want to frighten anyone unduly, but you are a target. There's no such thing as you're too small. It's how, I suppose, potentially successful an attacker will determine whether or not they attack you. But do remember as well, SMEs can absolutely defend themselves. They're very highly capable, and there are lots and lots of small steps that you can do that can make you that little bit. And that's what it's all about. It's not about being perfect. It's about getting incrementally better step by step. AI can absolutely be leveraged to build resilience. It is absolutely there for SMEs. Again, it's becoming much more embedded in tools out there. So it's not this really advanced technology that nobody that's the case. It's an advantage when used wisely, and that's the key thing. Again, security is not about being perfect. It's just about being prepared. You just need to be harder to break than the next target. Hackers like the easy life. They want the easy targets. Don't have yourself as that easy target. That was of some use to you, and that it jogged maybe a few questions that you'll take back to your own organization. And if there's any questions or anything, I'm happy to take them.
Paul, thanks very much. That's a very interesting presentation. Thank you.